Good evening, class. I thought I would do a brief uh, little lecture here over our two poems for this particular week. The Emily Dickinson poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, and the Dylan Thomas poem, Do Not Go General into That Good Night. Some of you might have already read these before in previous English class. They're very well known. Sometimes you see them on social media sites. Um, you may see them in reference in various television shows and movies and that type deal. So they're still sort of relevant to today's society. When we look at the Dickinson poem, we look at to see if this view of death is kind of a escort or is it a deceiver. So again, when you tackle those two questions for this week's modular assignment, that's something you could probably kind of keep in mind as we go through here and kind of look at these very quickly. The Dickinson poem, most of Emily Dickinson's poems are very short, but they carry a lot of meaning. Meaning you could probably unpack a lot of stuff if you actually go back and reread it multiple times. Which I try to pick poems for you to be able to do that because the first or even the second reading may not give you everything that you need to really answer some of these questions. Poetry is a little bit different than short stories, than novels, than drama. Uh, just because they're short doesn't mean you can't unpack a lot of meaning and interpretation from them to help you, you know, when it comes to the midterm exam, which is going to be due next Sunday, or the poetry essay, which is going to be due, I believe, on the 23rd of March. So when we look at Emily Dickinson's poem, it presents death as a courteous and gentle guide rather than a deceiver, right? We see that the poem opens with the first two lines. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. So if you notice, if we look at this word kindly, the use of kindly suggests a polite, almost chivalrous figure rather than a sinister force. The journey taken by the speaker is slow and deliberate, passing familiar scenes of life, a schoolyard, fields of grain, and a setting sun, right? This suggests a peaceful transition rather than an abrupt or terrifying one. If we look at the last stanza, it hints at a timeless nature of death. Since then, this centuries and yet feels shorter than a day. I first surmised that horses' heads were towards eternity. Notice how she uses dashes. That might be one of her most overused punctuation marks. Um, there's been a lot of things written about that within the last few years. Some think that maybe she had an undiagnosed some kind of medical issue that made her sort of epilepsy or sort of that nature, that when she was writing she would have these like seizure moments which would cause this. I don't know. I mean, one can only imagine. You'd have to be in her room or in her head, basically in her skin, really to see if that was true. There could be some possibility to that. She mostly stayed indoors. If you watched or read anything about her biography, she didn't really go out. She never really married. There was some, love interest in her life at some point, if you want to call those, or just really strong friendships. When we get back to this last stanza of her poem, though, it implies that the speaker has reached an eternal afterlife, not destruction. If death were deceitful, the tone would likely be more fearful rather than reflective and calm. Thus, the verse or the poetry or poem portrays death as a kind of escort leading the speaker into the eternity rather than a trickster leading her to doom. When we shift gears here and look at the Dylan Thomas poem, right, his poem urges people to resist death with fierce determination. the speaker repeatedly commands, right? We got this refrain or sort of this chorus going on with the lyrics here, if you want to call them lyrics. It's sort of like it can be sort of, I guess, read as a song almost. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. This suggests that one should fight against death rather than passively accept it. The poem provides examples of different types of men. So focus, look at when you're trying to answer that question on the Thomas, look at those different types of men. Wise, good, wild, and grave, who despite their unique lives, all resist death in their own way. So they all have their own way of raging against this dying of the light. The poet or the speaker ultimately addresses his father, right? Urging him to resist dying with strength. Thomas's view contrasts with Dickinson. While she portrays death as an inevitable and calm transition, Thomas sees it as a battle engaging defiance rather than surrender. Both poems, as we know, explore death, but from different perspectives. Dickinson is as a quiet journey, Thomas as a struggle. So sort of keep that in mind when you look at question 1 and question 2 as it relates to the Modular 7 assignment this week. Now, as it relates to Essay 1 and Exam 1, all those grades have been completed. I finally completed all of those within the last few hours. I am now trying to get caught up with Modular 6 assignment, and I soon shall be tackling Modular 7 after most get in. So if you see your grade, pretty much, unless I have graded your Modular 6, everything is up to date for you. And I mention that because really after week 8, which is coming up next week, right? After midterm, they're going to want another midterm or a second grade check. So you might want to look at your grade to see exactly where you stand as we head into really the final 7 weeks of our semester. Some of you are missing a lot of assignments, and we're getting to that point in the semester that I may not be able to, really by policy. I don't have to, because I put in there I usually don't accept late work, and there's good reason why I don't, because it bogs me down on grades, it bogs you down on the feedback, you get bogged down because you're worrying about turning in your last assignment when you have another assignment due in a couple of days. So there's a potential for that new assignment to be late. So I would, rather y'all turn stuff in on time or before time. That's why I say you got 10 days until this midterm is due. I mean, you're going to have to get the Respondus app. You're going to have to go through all the videos, handouts, everything that I put up there about that. If you check the last video, you should see some information about where to go about finding a good bit of this Respondus stuff. There's information in your simple syllabus. The college might have been emailing you stuff. I just recently posted an announcement that has an attachment, a handout that you might want to read, especially if this is your first time dealing with Respondus. Now, if you took 1101 or had another class last semester that was strictly online, you probably already know how to go about doing the Respondus deal. It hasn't really changed. If you're sort of new to the whole 100% online and never took a Respondus exam, you might want to go back and watch and review that stuff. But you don't have to wait until hours before it's due on the night to turn in the exam. I would strongly suggest that you go through the study guide I provided, be able to read all the poems that were in week 6, 7, and 8, and be able to really understand what you're reading. Take your own notes, review some of the videos, review some of the lectures, go back and look at some of your modular assignments that I've been grading and giving back to give you some feedback. But if you're able to go through those study guide for the exam, you should be pretty well prepared, depending on how much time you are spending on each one of these poems. So there will be 11 multiple choice questions where you're going to have to choose the best letter choice to answer. The test is not a got me test. But if you don't prepare for it, if you don't read the material, if you haven't been turning in stuff, you haven't been asking questions, doing anything tutor.com, going to a in-person tutor, emailing me or setting up something for Teams, then you may find the exam to be a lot harder than it needs to be. If you're prepared, you know your stuff, you're getting help, you've been active for the last 8 weeks in class on email, Teams, tutoring, whatever the case may be, then you should do fairly well. If you haven't been doing a lot of that stuff for whatever the reason, then I would definitely make sure that you're prepared to be able to click the start button, because once you hit start, you're going to have to stay within that testing environment for that 60 minutes if it takes all 60 minutes, meaning you can't pause the exam. You're really not supposed to get up and move around. I mean, if you do get up and move around, they could flag you. Let's say you have to go to the bathroom. They may allow it, but still, your time's ticking, meaning you can't stop the time. So I wouldn't click start until you are 100% ready that you can take the exam in one setting, that you know your stuff, that there's no distractions around, like people coming in or kids coming in or whatever the case may be, no phone calls, no loud noise, radio, cell phones, all that stuff going on. Your internet and all your computer equipment is up to date, and there's not going to be any problems on that end with shutdowns or updates. And you take it when you are most alert and awake. And make sure that you save your answers regularly. Because if something happens, if your time expires, if you don't save stuff, then basically if you send something that's blank, it's going to grade it as a 0 because there's nothing saved. There's nothing there. And I can't go back to verify that you did this or did that. So make sure that you save your answers. The other thing is, make sure that you have your webcam on at all times during your exam, and it must be able to, pretty much see you, basically see your face. There might be, they may want to also see, sort of do a split screen where they not only see your face, but also see your computer screen, because the lockdown browser is going to lock you down to that test, meaning you can't go to Google, you can't go anywhere on Blackboard or their school website. You're stuck within that particular platform, which would be the respondents and the exam, until you finish. Now, do you need the full 60 minutes? Well, that all depends on how fast you read and how well you're prepared. Some folks think multiple choice tests are really easy, and they can be, again, if you're prepared for it. If you know your information, you know your text, you know your poems, then it probably shouldn't be too terribly bad. If you haven't really prepared, you haven't studied this stuff, you haven't looked at the poems, then it's probably going to be kind of a difficult thing. You're probably going to do a lot of any, mini, miny, mo, and hopefully you get the right one. So you may need the full 60 minutes. You may be able to go in there and knock it out in 10. It just depends on how much you have retained information from the last, basically the 3 weeks. Now the essay 2 poetry essay, the topics have been up. They've been up for, I think, a couple weeks now. So you might want to start thinking about picking a topic and start drafting that essay 2. You can start sending me drafts pretty much any time. And I believe, like I said, I think that's due on the 23rd. I double check here real quick, just to make sure. And I think for week 9, I'm just giving you that week to basically rough draft that essay and start to finalize it. So if you go to Modular 7, you will see the poetry topics. Yes, it's due on Sunday, March 23rd, which by 11:59, which is coming up in a few weeks. Looking at modular 9, there will be some poetry in there, but I'm giving you that week. One, it will help me sort of get grades, I hope, caught up. Two, it should give you that week to not only do the 2 readings that you need to do and really finalize which particular essay topic you want to write about, because I'm giving you week 9 and week 8 for the most part, besides that's why we're doing the midterm sort of early on during that week, to give you at least a full good 2 weeks to get a rough draft going, and then you can start sending me drafts, tutor.com drafts between, now and I guess, the 23rd of March. And then we will start modular 11. Week 11 will be really our final unit, our final 5 weeks of the semester, which deal with drama, the drama final exam, and the drama research paper, which we'll be talking about as we get closer to the end of March, and definitely after our spring break, that first week of April. All right. So, and if you look in the modular 8 folder, you're going to see I did a video that talks a little bit more about where to go about finding this lockdown browser information, where to go and download the app to your correct device, that type stuff. So again, you don't have to necessarily wait until it gets closer to the 9th. I know I've had some folks within the last couple of days email me if they could take it earlier. Yeah, you could take it earlier. You could take it today. You could take it tomorrow. You could take it Sunday. You just want to make sure that you're able to focus, dedicate at least an hour to it, and just know your stuff. Because again, you're going to have to live with the grade, whatever it is, if you take it and then you wind up, not getting a very good grade on it. Well, that's your grade. Because you've already seen the test. I can't go back and reset it and all that stuff. So good luck with that. I will, real quick on the grades, just to kind of let you know, I have, like I said, several folks. Most people are in good standing. I got a handful of C's, a handful of B's, a few A's. I have one person that has a 47 in the class, one person that's got a 60, one person that's got a 54, one person that's got a 30. So those are going to be grades that are going to be hard to really pull up. I mean, you may want to, if you're planning on taking the midterm and turning in this week's assignment, after getting your midterm grade and the assignment for modular 7, you may want to see where your grade is at, and if you're still really struggling, if you're low in the F range, you may want to think about withdrawing the class, because the next 7 weeks, it's not going to be, I wouldn't say the work is any more challenging than the first 8 weeks, but if you're not turning stuff in regularly or getting the help that you need, your grade is not going to really improve much. And if you're trying to come back from, let's say, a 25, it's going to be hard to pull that up to at least a 70. Especially if you're not, starting to make really high B's and A's for basically the remainder of the course. The other thing is, because it's how the math works, let's say you got a 94 in the class, and you want to keep that 94, or if you want to improve it, meaning you want to get a 97, 98, whatever the case may be. Basically, if you want to keep your A, you're going to have to start making higher than what your average is. So if you have a 94 and you want to keep that A, you're going to have to start making 95s on everything here on out. Because otherwise, you start getting lower grades. Now, let's say that you get an 88 or a 91. Is that going to drop you? Probably not drop you too much. It won't keep you at a 94. You'll probably be within that 90 or 93 range, but you still would have to kind of keep that same average going on, because if you have a 94 and you started making 82s or 75s, or definitely in the 60s or lower, then yeah, it's going to drop you from that A. Same thing with B's and C's. If you want your grade to improve, you're going to have to start making higher than what you have right now as your average. Otherwise, it will start to drop a little bit. Now, depending on how low the grades are for the next 7 to 8 weeks, depends on where you're going to be when it comes May 3rd or 4th when our semester is over. So keep that in mind. Your grade is probably not going to stay consistent, meaning unless you just keep let's say you have an 85 and you make an 85 on everything that we do for the next 8 weeks, that's only how you're going to keep that 85. Because your grade's going to do one or two things in the next sort of 64 days, 8 weeks, however you want to look at it. Either it's going to increase from where it's at, or it's going to start decreasing from where it's at. Very rarely does the grade stay constant at this point. And as we get closer to the middle of April, it's going to go ahead and start to stabilize a little bit because we're not going to have that many assignments once we get to the middle of April. So just be wary of the grade. Some of y'all did that first extra credit attempt. That is still open, but the window on that's going to start closing because I'm going to start offering the second extra credit attempt here in a couple weeks. Go back and look at your email for the specific item for the first extra credit and the instructions, what I need to see from you to be able to get those 5 points to either SA1 or SA2 or SA1 or Exam 1, or you could also at this point, if I haven't already applied those points, you could put those 5 points on your midterm, but you have to let me know. The other thing is the weekly assignments, not anything that's not a major test or exam or essay, you get to drop one of those. So we've done, a number of those up to this point. If there's one that you got a very low grade on or just didn't do, I can go ahead and drop one of those for you now. That's the only one I can drop though. We have a few more of these weekly assignments between now and the end of the semester. So if you want to kind of wait until maybe after spring break to give me a definite answer of which one you want me to drop, that's fine. But if you want to sort of see the reflection in your grade already, you just need to email me and let me know which one you want me to drop. Again, I can't drop a major essay, I can't drop a major exam, but something like these weekly like the modular weekly assignment that you're doing this week or last week. If you didn't do so well on one of those, I can drop one of those. But I can only do one. I can't do like 2 or 3. So that's sort of another. It's not really like extra credit, but it does kind of help the grade because it's like you just never really took that one. Let's say you had a bad week, you had a lot going on, you got sick, and you didn't turn something in. Well, I can drop that one. That would get rid of one of your zeros. Or let's say you did turn something in, but most of your other ones are A's and B's, but on this one you made a 72. I can drop that one if you wanted me to. You're just going to have to let me know. Otherwise, if you don't let me know, by the time it gets to the end of the semester, I'm just going to go through and drop one for you, just because I want to keep my promise, because I do that for all my classes. I at least drop one of your lowest low stake, and that's basically what it is a low stake assignment. All right. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday, a great weekend ahead. Good luck on your midterm, not only for this class, but if you have midterms or a respondents event coming up for other classes, good luck on those. And please reach out if you need any help. Have a good day.